And we are live. G'day everyone, Mike Jeffrey here, and you are listening to My Creative Journey, episode number 28. To all you new listeners out there, hello, and thank you so much for taking the time to stop by here today. As I said, my name is Mike, and I'm a wedding photographer from Sydney, Australia. Each week on the show, I bring you guys along on the highs and lows of my own creative journey, and share all the knowledge that I've gained along the road to building my own freelance business. This week, I want to discuss the differences between building a business and building a following. Far too many people obsess over the numbers of followers they have on Instagram or TikTok and forget that those numbers don't actually pay the bills. So I want to share some of the biggest business mistakes people make when building a following and let you in on how to fix them. But first, let's talk about what has been going on for me this past week. And actually, it's been a pretty productive week, all things considered, to be honest with you guys. Since I recorded the last episode, which was last Thursday, I'm recording this one on the Tuesday again. It's been a pretty good week. I've been actually pretty productive in the work that I really wanted to do. It's been hard, as I spoke about last week, in really not knowing what to do and what direction to go in, as we're not allowed to work a lot at the moment. So it's been a lot of back-end work, but I think I've been pretty productive on that type of work. I spent a rather large chunk of last week preparing things to actually post on social media. I've been preparing a lot of different things to update Instagram, but also update on my Facebook page as well. I think that's one of the things that I do tend to ignore is my Facebook page, but if I look back on it, it's been one of the things that has actually provided me the most amount of work is my Facebook page, and through referrals and through actual friends sharing stuff around. I think I discussed this in an episode before about how I do get heaps of people sharing my work a lot more on Facebook than Instagram. So I've been really ignoring that because it's not an app that I enjoy using, but it's something that I need to update more often. So I've been trying to update that a lot more recently, and also scheduling some of my posts for Instagram as well, and trying to get those ready to go, because I know that Instagram is one of those platforms that I need to be keeping updated and keeping the images fresh on there so that people always have stuff to look at. As well as that, I've also added a few highlights on my Instagram, added a few story highlights to my Instagram so that people can have a bit more information about me. I sort of recorded a few videos that I'm going to be spreading across both my website and my Instagram there so that people can get a bit more of a sense of who I am and about my sort of work and my style and that sort of stuff, so that when they go there, they are understanding more about me than just the images that I'm posting. So I think that is a big part of any business, and really getting to know someone, especially when it's a individual business like photography. You really want to know who you're working with. So I've been trying to work really hard and get those videos up to date, and it's a big part of the process that I've spoken about before, about allowing people in more on my life and to know me more personally, because I want people to know that there is a face behind the business, and really knowing that there is that there, it allows people to be more comfortable in knowing what they're actually purchasing and knowing where they're actually spending their money. So I really enjoy the actual process of updating that, because I get to speak about some things that I don't normally talk about on my Instagram pages, and be able to talk a bit more about myself, which is really nice. And it's really opened me up, I think, by actually having this podcast, to be more open to speaking in that candid sort of a way to let people into my life. And hopefully those will have a good reception, and people will be able to get more of me if they do go to my Instagram page. As I said, I'm going to be throwing those videos up on my website as well, because I think that is a big component of the website. I think having a website is very important also for your portfolio, but as well as that, being able to provide more about yourself and tell people who you are and what you're trying to provide and what your actual mission is, because it's hard to stand out in this industry. It's a very large industry, a lot of people starting in it. It's an easy industry to start in, I think, so that it's very broad, and a lot of different people specializing in a lot of different areas. So you really have to make yourself stand out, and you don't have a long time. If someone is on your website, you need to convince them almost then and there that why you should be the photographer for them, or in any sort of art form, why you should be the artist for them, or why you should be the choice for them. So having that video there is a nice, easy, fast way to be able to tell people who you are and what you're about without them having to sit there and read something for 5 minutes. Most people these days are used to just watching videos, and if you are able to put captions on those videos, that's even better, because it gives people an opportunity to explore you through a different medium than just reading something on your about page on your website. As well as that, I've also added a service booking form to my website. This is something that I was sort of tossing up for the longest time, and whether to add an automated sort of booking service through the website. It's not something that I want to do with my wedding photography, but it is something that I want to start doing with other types of photography that I've been working on. So whether that be just couples photography or family photography or other sorts of portrait photography, allowing people to directly book in through my website and allowing them to book straight up front, because that is not something that I need a lot of information on. And it's also something that can be changed around. It's not something that they have a sort of set afternoon that they need me for. So if things need to be moved, that is able to be done after the fact and people can sort of get locked in straight away. It's one of those things that hopefully will allow me to create more business around that, because I think one of the big things is having to inquire to a photographer and having to hear back from them does tend to put a lot of people off in thinking that, oh, well, if I've got to email them, then I'm not going to contact them. And so allowing an opportunity for them to get in touch and to actually book in a service without actually having any contact with me, because hopefully they've already understood who I am through the videos on my website and on my social media pages and things like that. They already have a good enough understanding of who I am that they feel comfortable then book me without emailing and asking a bunch of questions. And I would hope that after being on my website for a few minutes, you would understand all those different things. I think I've tried to update it in a way that it facilitates answering all those different types of questions, and that hopefully you wouldn't have anything more to ask after being there. I'm sure that I've used it as a place to educate people on the different types of things that I provide, the services I provide, and the different things that I can offer that they may not have even thought about. So yeah, those are just a few of the things that I've been working on through this week and trying to get those up and running. I know there are a lot more things that I would like to do, but it's all about taking those small steps and trying to achieve something rather than just stressing out over a really big change. I don't really want to update my whole website, but just little bits and pieces that I can add in there, and things, trying to think about things that I can do from home and things that I've been wanting to do for a while but haven't had the time to do them. Speaking about things that I've been wanting to do, or not wanting to do, but needed to do for quite a while, is looking into my taxes. So it's something I started to do for the last week and sort of put together my finances for the end of last year's financial year, and something that I've been planning for quite a while now, and been sort of looking through and what I can actually do. And I'm not sure if I've spoken about this much before. As a solo business owner, I don't actually have my own accountant or my own tax agent or anything like that. So I've been responsible for all my sort of finances, all my sort of accounting stuff throughout the year, and been trying to put that together in a form where it's easy to be able to understand where we're at the end of the year. I might actually make a episode about this. I'm not sure. I think it is something that is very important, and a lot of people do stress over it quite a lot. I think I might speak about it a bit more, if not make a whole episode about it, because I think it's an important thing to especially have some understanding of. I think too many people sort of leave it to the end of financial year or after the financial year to try and start sorting stuff out. But if you're not putting things in place early enough, you won't be able to make the amount of deductions that you would be entitled to as a business owner. So it's all about planning, and I've been trying to do that and trying to set myself up for this new financial year as well. So that has been something that I've been looking at in the past week, and that's something that I'll probably continue with over the next couple of weeks, in trying to get that set up and trying to get the finances in place so that that is able to be as automated as possible as we move into the end half of this year and into next year, when business does start to pick back up again. And then in my personal life, one of the other big things that I've been really trying to do this week is to actually get out running more. And that has been something that I've been trying to do for a while. It's been hard in the middle of winter, but I think this whole lockdown situation has had me feeling more inspired recently, which is odd because I'm not really training for anything, but I do have my goal for the end of the year of trying to run 100 kilometers each month. I've spoken about this on the podcast before. It hasn't been for quite a while now that I've spoken about this. I've spoken about this on earlier episodes, but I'm a little bit behind on that goal, and it's something that I am trying to catch up towards. And over the past couple of weeks, I've had a lot more motivation to continue that on, which has come about through, I think being in lockdown and not having much else to do and not having other things standing in my way on that, but also just I think the motivation of continuing on those goals. It's been good. I look back on a few of my goals from earlier in the year that I did have for myself, and sort of seeing that there as one that I am able to hit still and can still work towards. I spoke about, I think in episode 24, about how I didn't get to run my half marathon earlier in July, and that was a real big setback for me, having been something that I had trained for quite a while. But I think now, without having anything to actively be training for or actively planning for, I think that has been good. It's allowed me some sort of freedom, that I'm not stressed out that I have to do anything, and I think that provides a lot better results when I know that everything that I do now is just out of me actually wanting to go and try to do it, because I'm not training for anything, and this is just so freeing. If I feel like I want to go for a run of an afternoon, I'll go for a run, and if I don't feel like it, I won't. And I think that is a big thing and a big mentality shift in the way that we have to start to try to do things. Of course, at the start, you need to be strict on yourself and you need to have some sort of schedule or some sort of routine in place, and I think that is important, but I also am not so strict on myself that I have to go every single day. I try to allow myself to sort of go only 3 days a week, and if those happen to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then that's great, but if they don't happen to be every day, if I have a day off in between every run, then that's fine as well, and I'm not trying to be too strict on myself, and I think that does lead to great results, and I'm trying to bring some of that into my business as well, and trying to plan for different things, and I think that can be one of the best ways to go about things, is not to be too harsh on yourself and allow yourself to be able to produce results. One of the other things that I started this week was a sort of practice that I tried to put into place, and I've been trying to put in place for quite a while now, where I'm aiming to sit down for an hour each morning and just edit my photos, because that has been something for me for the longest time that I would only do when inspiration strikes. And for me, that's not the best way to go about things, in my opinion, personally, for that type of work. It is something that I'm trying to pursue as a career, something that I'm trying to pursue as work. So if I'm not proactively sitting down and getting that practice in and having that time, then I'm only practicing when I feel like it. And some days it is going to be hard, but I think you need to put constraints on yourself, and you need to be able to sit down and practice as much as possible. I think that if you're only going to do it when you feel inspired to do it, then that is an easy way sometimes to not be as strict on yourself. And as I said with the running thing, of course I only go for a run when I really want to go for a run, but I think now I've sort of built into a stage where every few days I really want to go for a run. So that has sort of taken care of itself over a longer period of time. In the beginning, it was something that I had to really push myself out the door every day, because something to get myself moving, but now I've sort of found that motivation to continue on. And I think it's the same with this, in being able to sit down and edit photos every day and be able to give myself that hour every day, where there aren't any rules on that. There's no expectation to be able to edit a photo every single day. It's just having to sit down, and I think it bridges that gap of not being able to find time and also having the motivation to come sit down. If you're coming to sit down every day, then hopefully the motivation will hit you when you get there, because you're not having to wait for that motivation to strike in order for you to sit down and actually do the work. And I think in a way that's going to produce a lot better results. One of the other big things that combats is the issue of the blank page. I am never sort of coming here and sitting down and opening up to a blank page and sort of starting off fresh again, because I'm continuing on from the work that I did yesterday. I've sort of allowed myself an hour a day, and I'm saying I'm not going to work any less than an hour, but I'm not going to work anything more than an hour. It's a trap that I get myself caught up in, is editing a photo. I could take 8 hours to edit a photo, and I could just be here at the computer all day and edit one single photo. Now, you could say that's not a productive use of time. Yes, it probably isn't a productive use of time, but it's also the fact that I need to be able to spread that out over a few days. I could sit here on a Monday and edit one photo, but then not come back till next week because I've burnt myself out on a Monday. So it's about planning that time, but also knowing when to stop, because if we know when to stop, then we know when to start again. I know at the end of that hour when I stop, I know what I'm having to come back to in the morning, and I'm itching to come back because I'm halfway through something and I know what I need to start on in the next day. So we're sort of combating that issue of the blank page by constantly coming back on ideas. And if in that hour I end an idea, I end a project, I end a photo, then I can start on the next one. And hopefully that momentum that I've created through that hour or through that half hour that I've been working already, I've ended a photo, I'm on that high from ending one, I can then get back into and start a new one, because I haven't burnt myself out, because I haven't been sitting there for 8 hours working continually to the point where as soon as I ended, I'm so relieved that I've got that one out of the way because I can stop all of a sudden. I'm still itching to keep going because I've only been there for half hour in that day. And yeah, as I said, I've only started this last week, and I hope this is a practice that I can continue, because I know that practice makes perfect, and I know that I need to be actively trying to apply my skills. I think in this instance at the moment where we are locked inside, it's probably one of the only things I can do. I've been complaining that I can't be actively going and taking photos, so editing photos is as close that I can get to really working on my skills and working on that sort of stuff. So giving myself an amount of time and planning it in there as something that I'm sort of training for in a way has been really helpful, and hopefully I will update you guys and see how that's been progressing on into next month. And now with all of that out of the way, let's jump into today's topic, which is all about building a business and not building a following. Now, This is something that I've wanted to speak on for the longest time. I think I went back and looked at this idea and I wrote this down on the 6th of February, almost 6 months ago. So I think it's been something that I've been struggling with and something that I know a lot of people also struggle with and something that I thought I could make an episode about back then. And I still think I can, but I've just been waiting for the right time. And I think now is a good time because it really rolls on from what I was speaking about last week in being able to not create for Instagram and create for yourself. I think it's that whole thing of turning that creativity into a business. And people, if you're just creating for Instagram, then you're not creating for your business. There's no way to turn that into a business because you're not creating for the right reason. So if we get that first step in place in creating for yourself, then how do we then turn that into a business and not worry so much about the following? It really is one of those sad parts about social media is that too many people today, I think, are concerned about their follower count. And if they don't have a certain number, then they're unsuccessful. They're not going to be able to make anything. And I think that in itself is a never-ending spiral because you're always going to be after more. You're always going to aspire to have more. If you get to 1,000, you're going to want 10,000. You get to 10,000, you're going to want 100,000. So you're never going to hit a number where you feel comfortable. And that in itself, you need to take care of that for yourself. You need to be content with the fact that any number is never going to be good enough. So stop caring about those numbers. So you need to be creating for the right reasons to start with. But also, we're in an unfortunate position where sometimes our follower count does equal some sort of social proof. A lot of brands, a lot of people, a lot of businesses won't work with you unless you have a certain amount of followers because they're trying to tap into that. Or, on the contrary, where me as a business, if someone comes to me and sees that my Instagram page only has 100 followers, then they might think, oh, he's only new, he's only starting out, or not many people like his work, or he's not working very often. So that sort of social proof that people would rather go with someone that has 10,000 followers as opposed to someone that has 100 followers. Now, that's not to say that their work isn't at an equal standard because it probably could be. And there's no saying that someone that has more followers has a greater quality of work. We're not trying to say that, but people tend to place more value on someone that has more followers, and especially when you're starting to work with brands, when you're starting to work with other businesses that want to sort of collaborate on those sorts of tasks in this sort of artist realm, it can become that way. And people think that if they don't have enough followers on social media, that those things aren't going to happen. Now, that may well be the case, and that may well be true, but I think focusing on your actual content itself and trying to make that as best as possible is one way to lead to you increasing your amount of followers. If your content isn't good, you're never going to get followers. So regardless of the fact that if you have followers, you may be able to produce more content, let's just start with the content and trying to get that produced as best as we can. The unfortunate reality in all this is that social media doesn't pay the bills. The amount of followers that you have on social media is not going to pay your bills. You're not going to get paid in exposure. We talk about this all the time in people wanting to use you or use your work in exchange for actually sharing your profile and sharing you for more exposure. And that in itself is never going to pay the bills. It may, depending on how you've got your business sort of set up, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But generally, that is not going to support you. And most people who are just in it for the followers haven't looked beyond that. So they're not in a position to capitalize on those amount of followers. I know myself, I've been on Instagram for probably 3 years now, which is only a fairly short amount of time considering most other photographers out there who've been on it for quite a long time and had already had a very large following before I even jumped on the platform. But I've been slowly sort of trying to build that sort of following on Instagram for the past few years. And that has mostly been to give me more opportunities, I think, as I spoke about with the business side of things, to actually have brands sort of try to approach you as a photographer. There is some sort of social proof behind having more followers, but it's also about having more people to advertise to. As a photographer, the more people that I have, I'm actually offering a service to these people. So if people are following along, that is someone that I can advertise to or then spread through word of mouth, either from them or to someone else that they know. I know I've been caught in this trap before of being stressed about the amount of followers that I have on Instagram and placing too much worth on that. And this is a whole other thing I could sort of speak about, but placing too much worth on that is just not ever going to be the way that you're going to improve if you're trying to create for the algorithm. As we spoke about last week, trying to create for any social platform, create for other people, you're never going to be doing it for the right reason. So stepping away from that and creating work that you enjoy. I, for probably the last year, have been stuck on Instagram at about 700 followers and had that for probably a good 12 months up until just recently when I shared a few photos that did get shared around by a few other people and has caused me to gain a few more followers than that recently. But before that, it was very stagnant. And I think I had to continue on creating work because I knew that I needed to be in a position where if I did post one photo that did get shared around, that if the rest of them weren't good, that no one would be interested in the rest of my work. You can't just have one rose in a whole sea of thorns there, because people will spot that out and people will see that, oh, that's really not the standard of work that they're up to. This was just a random occurrence. So you've got to be out there willing to put more effort in, and in turn, when people do see you, then that is when you'll gain that following, because they know that your work is up to a standard. It's then also about what I really want to speak about today is being able to turn that sort of following into some sort of business. And I think people go about this the sort of wrong way, and people do tend to struggle. There are people out there that have large followings on Instagram and on Facebook and on TikTok and things like that aren't able to sort of turn that into a business. They aren't able to convert the people that are following them into actual clients of their business, or into people who actually work with them, or sort of buy their products or anything like that, because they've sort of set themselves up in the wrong way. But then again, there are people out there who don't even have social media, who are sort of thriving in business, who seem to be able to do it the right way because they've stuck to the actual core of business, to supporting their customers and their clients, and they know what they're really about. So we're sort of trying to bridge that gap and trying to close those two over and see how you can use some sort of social following to actually produce a business, and want to speak about some of the different things that are holding people back and the mistakes that they're trying to make when creating this social following and not planning for actually making a business out of it. I myself am trying to build a business. I'm trying to build a business on social media, but I'm trying to build a business outside of that as well. I'm also trying to build sort of a personal brand for myself as being someone who owns that business and owns other different things and speaks here on this podcast, but a bunch of other different things as well. And one of the questions that I do tend to ask myself is, what would happen if my Instagram account suddenly got deleted tomorrow? Would I still have a strong enough personal brand? Would I still have a strong enough work? Would my work be able to continue on without that? Would I be able to continue operating in my business without social media tomorrow? Or would I be able to restart and continue on in the same manner that I was, because the work was up to a standard that it was able to come back to the top very quickly? Again, is your brand strong enough? Are you a good enough voice that if your Instagram account got deleted, or if this podcast got deleted, could I start another one and bring that up? Because what I have to say is more important than the platform that I'm on. Is my work good enough to build that following again? Is my art good enough? Is the standard of work that I'm putting out good enough? Or is it just the fact that I have a large following, but if they weren't there tomorrow, I couldn't build that back up again because my work has sort of slipped off and I've started to get complacent in the work that I'm doing? So these are questions that I think you have to ask yourself. And if you think that if you were starting from zero again tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to build yourself back up again, then there's something you've probably got to do. And you've probably got to think about whether you can maintain that business without having that social following. And too many people have a large social following. They can't convert it because they're not actually trying to do things that will convert people and actually make people want to purchase their products or use their services, because they've become stagnant and they're not actually growing, but they do have this large number on their social media. So let's now jump into some of the mistakes that I think people make when they're starting to build this sort of following. And I think the first one, and the most obvious one that anyone could jump to, is that they don't have a product. They don't have a service. There's nothing there that they're trying to sell. They're not promoting anything. And that's fine. If you're trying to build a following with no end goal in mind, then that is great for you and you can go and do that. And you're probably not the type of person I'm talking to. But if you are trying to build a following and you're not sort of specializing in any one particular area, or you're not aiming to sort of sell a particular product or a service or use your skills in one way or another, you've got to really think about how is your audience being cultivated to be someone who would buy a particular type of product or purchase a particular type of service from you, whether that be an in-person service, an online service, that really doesn't matter. But what are the type of people you're building in order to sell them a service? Are you building a broad spectrum of people, in which case you probably can't sell any particular thing to a whole variety of people because you're not going to be marketing there to anyone because you've got such a broad spectrum? Or should you start to sort of narrow your business down? Even if that slows your growth a little bit, that growth will be in turn a lot more important to you later on down the track when you do launch a product or do launch a business that can be specialized in that one particular area that you have been talking about for quite some time. I think that's the whole thing about people launching a sort of brand or a business, but then also launching a second business, because they have a few things that they speak on. They can talk about two separate things. They can talk about different things within the same realm. And a lot of people who do follow them may follow them for one reason, because they're interested in photography, but they may also do something else on the side. Maybe they're into fitness, maybe they're into coffee, maybe they're into personal finance. Who knows what it is, but they're interested in that as well, and they share a lot of content in that realm, which allows them to then start a second business around that because they've cultivated a following that, one, enjoys their work and enjoys their art, who knows what that is, but they also speak a lot about something else, and they're very passionate about that allows them to then produce a product on that as well. And that taps into an even deeper audience that they didn't even know they had. I think in that way, it really pays dividends to specialize in one particular area or speak about different things that really interest you and stick to those sort of things. Because if you're opening yourself up to a wide variety of different people who aren't interested in any service that you could possibly then provide to them, you're never going to be able to sell them anything or never going to be able to take advantage of that audience that you there have. The second mistake that I see a lot of people make is when they do have a business, they're promoting it to the wrong type of people. So they're trying to build a following on Instagram, which is great, and trying to get that business awareness out to a bunch of different people, which is a great thing to do. But we can't be advertising to people who aren't going to try and buy our product or aren't going to use our service. If we're promoting our service business overseas, these people, more likely than not, are never going to use our service. So they're not the audience that you want to be cultivating. They're not people that you want in your following because they're never going to be people you can turn into clients. You're never going to be able to turn them into paying clients that may then return something for you by sharing your work on. So making sure that you are sticking within a sort of area. If you work in a service industry, don't advertise to people who are never going to work with you because they don't live close enough. Or if you only offer services to people under the age of 30, probably don't advertise to people older than that, because regardless of whether they're going to add to your social following, you're never going to be able to advertise to them because they're never going to be engaged anyway, and they're never going to be interested in buying anything that you then promote to them. It's another big thing with people sort of giving away stuff for free on Instagram or any sort of social media platform, that then they produce an audience, but they have only produced an audience of people who want things for free. These people don't actually care about their work. They've just seen that they're going to give something away for free, and so they're going to go to it and add them on Instagram or add them on Facebook and things like this. So they now have a large following because they've had some sort of giveaway on there, and they've given away all this free product. Then when it comes time to actually launch a product and launch a sale on their product, no one's interested in actually buying it because they're asking for actual money here. And these people that they did bring in through their giveaway were only interested in the free stuff. And now they can't actually sell them anything because they're not the type of people that are actually interested in buying their services to start with. And so, yeah, it's important to be able to build a following, to gain that social proof and gain momentum within your business, but also think about where you're advertising and what you're trying to provide to. And the third thing I think is not having any website or having anything external to your social media accounts. If that is just an email marketing scheme, then that's fine as well. If you're collecting email addresses and sort of sending out newsletters and things like that, that's fine as well. But I think people need to have something outside of that, because too many people, I think, rely on Instagram just for their businesses these days, or rely on Facebook just for their businesses. And more often than not, people won't take that as being legit moving forward if you are to actually start a business. So making sure that you've got some sort of sales funnel set up that it can direct people to your website. It can direct traffic to your website, or it can direct people to an email marketing page where they can sign up for something. Because as we said, we're trying to set ourselves up that if this Instagram page did collapse later on, that you would still have some sort of infrastructure. You would still have somewhere that people can go and somewhere that people know that they can always get you at. If you're trying to sell products just based off Instagram and just by posting them there and saying to people just message you, or just emailing through the social media messaging apps, like using Messenger as a sort of email service, this is never going to look as professional, and people think that is their one-stop shop because they've built up this big following on one of these platforms, and they're going to use that as the be-all and end-all. Whereas I think people need to steer away from that and say that it's okay to still have something external to that. I think there's been a big switch away from sort of having a website in some sort of ways, and people think that they don't need that, and that's a bit old school. But I think in most cases, having that or having something external is going to add to your business and add social proof. If you're looking for an easy way to add social proof, create a website, create something external to that, create a storefront so that people know that you're a legit business, rather than just trying to build a social following, which could add social proof and could allow people to think that more people know who you are, if more people are following you, that you're actually real. But the quicker way to do that is add a website or add something external that people can get to know you a bit more and get to know your business and what you're actually about. The fourth thing, and something that I spoke about before, but I think people get too complacent on advertising. People get complacent on the audience that they already have. And once they hit a mark, they sort of start to stagnate because they never go beyond that and never go beyond the scope of what they've already got in front of them. People advertise to get to a certain mark and then they seem to be happy with where they are and seem to be happy to have the amount of followers that they've got, and they never advertise outside of that again because they've said they've worked so hard to get this social media following that now that is all they're going to target and they're going to put all their energy in there, which I think can have a positive effect, but most of the time I think it's going to be negative because people are going to get sick and tired of it. And most of the case, when it is just a product-based service, it's not a return service and they don't set it up well enough in a way that they're actually creating a sort of subscription-based service through a small enough audience. And you can do that if you're skilled enough to do that in one particular area. But if you're trying to sell a product, you're never going to repeat sale a product to the same person. So if you're never looking to expand that following and looking to expand followers in areas that you're actually providing a service, if you built a social media page 10 years ago and it now has 100,000 followers, for example, and now you launch a product, how do you know what those people are interested in? They may have just been following you from a long time ago. And if you're never going to go expand on that and give yourself more options to advertise to more people, I think that is a quick way to go south because you're never keeping up and you never know how many people are actually there. You never know how many people are actually interested until you do launch a product, and then it becomes obvious when no one actually buys your stuff. And then the fifth thing is priorities and not prioritizing the right things. I think too many people put too much emphasis on social media, and that can be great and that can be a very rewarding way to build a business. But if you're not prioritizing your own clients and your own customers that you already have and trying to serve them the best way that you possibly can and trying to give them the best service that you possibly can, then you're sort of losing out there. If you're trying to give more to social media and people who haven't actually booked with you and you don't even know if they even will book with you versus someone who has booked with you and has bought things from you before, if you're not going to try and keep that sort of warm audience there and keep that sort of fruitful for in the future and keep that referring on and keep that sort of building within itself, because people who have shopped with you before more likely will shop with you again. Especially if you're in a service industry, they can shop with you again, or they will refer you on to someone else who will shop with you again. If you're not going to try and keep that sort of warm and keep those people happy in a way and spend time actually providing a service or providing more of a service, being able to go above and beyond for those people, then you're really missing out there and you're not prioritizing the right things. If you're prioritizing Instagram more by saying I need to post on Instagram every day, or I need to be able to give all these giveaways on Instagram and not actually giving to people who have actually supported you in the past and you know are interested in your work, then I think you are going about it the wrong way. And prioritizing any social media platform and prioritizing growth on there over growth in your own business is the quickest way to not see any financial growth, because people who have supported you in the past are going to get very frustrated with that. But also, you're never going to be able to grow with people who you don't know are actually interested in your service. So making sure that once you get a client, that you then support them through rather than trying to find a new one, because it's much easier to hold on to someone and use them and sort of make sure that you're providing the best service you possibly can for them, so that then they may refer you on to someone else and hopefully in the future sprout more new clients through them rather than all time and effort being placed on Instagram. And so that is my take on how I think you should build a business and how I think you should sort of steer away from only going after a social media following and sort of creating more of a business out of that rather than just creating a following. But I think I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you guys did gain something out of this at least, and I hope to expand on this in a future episode about how to sort of capitalize on some sort of social media following and how to use that to your advantage to be able to create some sort of product or service that you know that they would be after. So do let me know if that is something that you guys are interested in, and I will put that together as a future episode. But hopefully you guys did gain something out of this week's episode, and if you did, as I always say, I would love it if you guys did share this episode around, if you shared it with someone else who you think would be as interested as you were or actually gain something out of this episode, someone who has been struggling with this for quite a long time. I know there are a lot of people out there striving to build some sort of social media following and not knowing how to get it into a business and knowing some of the strategies that they could use or some of the things that they've probably been going wrong with in the past. So this could be something that they could use. And I know I've definitely used a lot of these things before to be able to sort of steer me in more of the right direction. So hopefully you guys did take something away from this, and I would love it if you guys could share this around. And that is where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I hope you all have a great week, and I will speak to you all again next Monday. Bye.